Every time I think about the story, I laugh at myself because how ridiculous I was. It was my first day being a lifeguard at Splash Town, which is a water park in Houston. And so I had gone through all this training, learning CPR, the Heimlich maneuver, how to be a lifeguard, and what to do if someone was drowning. It was my first day, and I started on the wave pool. And I was a deep water lifeguard, so that meant I was going to be guarding people who were in water that they couldn't touch. And we often have stays in the wave pool, so I was super nervous because it's this wide open space, and you have to make sure you're scanning the water and make sure everyone's safe. And we had a rotation stick, and I had no idea where I was supposed to go. So each time you would go to one spot, and then you would rotate, and the stick told you where you would have to go. And so I was so confused. I didn't know where any of the spots were because we had an orientation that was supposed to tell us, but it was like a couple of weeks before that, so I had no idea what I was doing. And then after the wave pool, we went to what we call Big Spin, and we just call it the toilet bowl because that's basically what it looks like. It's you go down the slide, and then you go into this big bowl, and you're on your back, and then all of a sudden you pop down into 8 feet of water. And so I was a lifeguard at the bottom of that slide, and I was super nervous because I knew, because I went to Splash Town my whole life, like growing up, and I always knew that there was always someone drowning in that pool, like there's always a lifeguard jumping in there to save someone. And so I was so nervous each time someone would come down because they plummet under the water, and you can't really tell, like, okay, are they okay, until they pop up and start swimming. So I was at the bottom, a few people had gone down the side, and everything was fine. And then all of a sudden, I'm like watching, and I see a person plop down, and they're flailing their arms, screaming, and I'm like, oh no, I have to jump in and save this person. And I was supposed to remember all these things to do, like you have to blow your whistle because that signals that there's an emergency. You have to jump in the water, and you have to say, oh, I'm a lifeguard, I'm here to help. You have to point where the person is. You have to hold up a fist that says, this means I need help. And there was just so many things that I was supposed to remember. And in that moment, I was just like, oh no, there's someone drowning, I have to get in that water. So I jumped in the water, and I pushed my guard to them, and I'm like, I'm lifeguard, and I had forgotten to blow my whistle, and so I try and like grab my whistle, and then so by the time I got this person out to the side, my head guard, which is like my manager, came over and was getting all of the girls' information about and so she was taking care of that, and so I went back to the ride, and I was lifeguarding again, and all of a sudden the next person drops down, just starts doing the exact same thing, and I was like, oh no, and I was already so nervous from just having to do that right before. And so I do the same thing, and I forgot to blow my whistle again, and so when I got that girl out of the water, it turned out like they were friends, and they both didn't know how to swim, and then they still went into 8 feet of water. But anyways, my head guard like started yelling at me. Well, she wasn't really yelling at me. She was just like, why didn't you blow your whistle? That's what you need to do so that we know there's an emergency. And I was just like, I'm sorry. And I just after that day, I was just I didn't want to be a lifeguard anymore, but I'm glad I did because now I've worked there for 5 years, and so that was definitely a crazy experience, but now I just like laugh at how silly it was and how not a big deal it was, and how I've improved so much since my first day of being a lifeguard.